At the Qin River bank, a fleet of small boats moves across the water. Thousand Faces orders everyone to hurry and load everything onto the boats. They are taking the water route to avoid the patrols outside Toad City, so there is no room for delay. When the spies point out that the blueprints have been soaked by the rain, Thousand Faces dismisses the problem and urges them to move faster. Soon, the order is given, and the boats depart. As the vessel sails farther into open water, Mu Changjing sits at the front of the boat. Thousand Faces approaches him and acknowledges that he knows Mu Changjing is reluctant to leave Toad Village. After all, he has lived there for a few years. However, Thousand Faces insists that all of that is in the past now. Since Mu Changjing has turned from darkness to light, he deserves the greatest credit. He continues by claiming that once they return to Liangzhou City, Lord Song will definitely reward them handsomely. Mu Changjing remains silent. Thousand Faces then adds that Liangzhou City's scout team will probably fall under Mu Changjing's command from now on. Once Mu Changjing becomes rich and famous, Thousand Faces reminds him not to forget his brothers. Mu Changjing finally responds by questioning where he is supposed to go. Their merits are equal, because without Thousand Faces clearing the fog, he would never have broken through. But in the next moment, Mu Changjing suddenly looks up with a startled expression. Thousand Faces also notices that someone is coming and urges Brother Mu to inform the others. Before he can finish mentioning the other brothers, Mu Changjing swings his hammer and smashes him across the face. The attack does not stop there. Mu Changjing follows up immediately, knocking Thousand Faces down and sending him overboard into the water. The spies curse at Mu Changjing and demand to know what he means. Realizing that something has gone wrong, they shout an alarm while Mu Changjing grips his weapon. At that moment, Mu Changjing recalls Shu Shenji's words. Shu Shenji had admitted that Toad Village was not kind to Mu Changjing at first, but there had been nothing they could do. He even confessed that he had remained wary of Mu Changjing because, out of everyone there, Mu Changjing was the most likely to betray him. Yet Shu Shenji also made one thing clear. Among all the blacksmiths in the shop, only Mu Changjing could complete the tasks. That made him the person Shu Shenji trusted the most. Then, Shu Shenji gave him a choice. If Mu Changjing truly wanted to leave, he could chase after the person he loved and the life he desired. Of course, without him in the blacksmith shop, there would be plenty of work left behind. Even so, Shu Shenji urged him to go, and the farther he went, the better. But if he ever became unhappy, he could return to Toad Village, because the Grand Chief and the military strategist would cover for him. A cup shattered against the floor. Mu Changjing called out to him, tears streaming down his face. Shu Shenji looked up with a dazed expression. Then, Mu Changjing knelt and admitted that he still wanted to forge. Back in the present, Mu Changjing glares with fierce determination. The spies condemn him as a traitor and order the others to kill him. Mu Changjing declares that as Mu Changjing, Mo Mingmi is his master, but as Cheng Dalei is his master. The spies surge forward, shouting for his death. Mu Changjing challenges them to come at him and swings his hammer. On that day, the drizzle stops, the clouds clear, and the mist dissipates. Mu Changjing wonders whether the sword arriving before him is meant to behead a traitor or offer him a hand of rescue. Massive ships draw closer to the lone boat. From the deck, Cheng Dalei and his crew watch the scene unfold. Cheng Dalei comments on how someone could get on a boat without a helmet. The large ship begins sailing toward the smaller vessels. Mu Changjing understands one thing clearly. Because he is now a blacksmith named Zhang Chang, he is fighting hard to protect his own path. Cheng Dalei then gives his military order. Wipe them all out. The soldiers on the ships shout to save Brother Cheng. And with that, the entire fleet charges forward. Several days later, a crescent moon hangs over Shuo Fang City. Inside the city lord's residence, the strategist informs the city lord that all the grain and fodder General Zhang has collected over the past few days is now stockpiled inside the city. Their plan is to sell it to Toad Village before the autumn harvest and make a huge profit. However, the strategist grows suspicious. Selling so much grain to Cheng Dalei feels dangerously close to supplying the enemy. The city lord dismisses the strategist's concern and insists he is overthinking it. Toad City has plenty of grain and money, so selling some grain to them will not cause any real damage. Besides, chances to pull silver from Cheng Dalei's pocket do not come often. The strategist points out that Liangzhou has suffered a severe drought this year, the harvest is poor, the people have not even begun gathering crops, and southern grain has not arrived yet. That leaves one serious problem. The origin of this old grain makes no sense. The city lord questions his meaning, and the strategist brings up the most dangerous possibility. This grain may be General Zhang's army rations. The city lord immediately cuts him off and warns the strategist to stop talking. Everyone is making money from this deal, and speaking too much will only create trouble. The strategist falls into a contemplative silence. Outside, carts loaded with grain move through the moonlit streets. Nearby soldiers chat among themselves. One has only earned a few ounces of silver, but even that feels easy. His wife wants him to sell all their grain and take advantage of the profit. To him, the Zhu family truly knows how to do business, and following them feels like a guaranteed win. The strategist quietly realizes that everyone is taking a share, and everyone believes they are making a fortune. But that only makes him wonder if a guaranteed profit can really exist in this world. Soon after, the strategist enters a courtyard, returns to his room, and sits down. Suddenly, a blade slashes across his throat. Blood spills from the cut, and he collapses to the floor. Nai Yinyang stands before him. Only then does the strategist understand. The silver is far too easy to obtain, so easy that it feels like bait. As the strategist lies motionless, Ni Yinyang wipes her blade and offers a brief apology. He is on the assassination list, so his fate has already been decided. After leaving the room, Ni Yinyang looks over the city and concludes that the fish have taken the bait. Now, it is time for the fishermen to act. The line must be reeled in. During the third watch of the night, soldiers stand guard at the city gates. One complains about being sleepy from standing guard every day and wonders when this life will finally end. Another urges him to endure a little longer, since someone will replace them soon. He also plans to bribe his way into Liangzhou City this year and enjoy a better life there. Then the soldiers notice a light in the distance. Before they can understand where it comes from, a massive firework explodes in the sky. Ni Yinyang confirms that the mission is complete and commands the forces to begin. The soldiers stare at the explosions in confusion. At the same time, a massive cavalry force charges toward the city gates. Panic spreads instantly. Soldiers shout that someone is approaching from 5 li north and struggle to identify the incoming force. Reports grow more frantic by the moment. First, they estimate 2,000 attackers. Then, 3,000. Finally, the numbers appear far larger, with at least 10,000 enemies charging in. Orders ring out to beat the drums. The defending soldiers cannot understand how such a large force arrived without warning. No message has come from the front sentries, making it seem as if they were all deaf and blind. The attackers seem insane for striking Shuo Fang City with cavalry, but the truth is already impossible to ignore. The forces from Toad Village are attacking the city. At the front of the charge, Fan Lehua leads the cavalry forward and orders the attack to continue. The soldiers immediately call for the signal fire to be lit and order every troop to prepare for battle. The enemy has arrived, and the archers are sent straight to the walls. Soon, the drummers begin their rhythmic warning, and the signal echoes across the entire fortress. More soldiers rush to reinforce the gate, but a cannonball is already drawing closer. A sudden strike sends shockwaves through the area. Villagers cry out for everyone to be careful with the reins, realizing the shot has landed. In the next instant, the gate is completely obliterated. Now, they are cooked. The city walls tremble from the impact. The soldiers struggle to understand what is happening, wondering if the blast is thunder. Then they spot ambushes on the mountaintop. Ling Zhen immediately commands another shot. Since the cannons have already breached the gate, this battle is now theirs for the taking. Inside the fortress, soldiers warn that things are bad because the gate has been broken by thunder. He stops them from panicking and orders them to lower the heavy gate quickly to block the cavalry. The gears groan as the heavy mechanism starts turning. Metal links rattle against the stone walls, and the heavy iron gate slowly descends to seal off the entrance. They want to obstruct the path with the iron gate, but Cheng Dalei arrives first. He cuts down the soldiers controlling the mechanism, leaving them screaming in pain, then jams his axe into the gears. The soldiers are stunned. The heavy iron gate comes to a stop. Cheng Dalei mocks them for trying to close their doors after doing business for so long, especially when their business partners have come knocking. But never mind. On a dark night with strong wind, it is a perfect night for killing. For Toad Fort, this is the perfect time for a major deal. At night, Cheng Dalei sits on the city wall like a giant toad. Meanwhile, Niu Niu waits patiently for the signal to act. Then the toad makes his move, and Cheng Dalei declares a robbery. As the wind rises and clouds fly, their grain becomes his grain. The troops charge forward, roaring for the kill. Fan Liwa quickly orders the vanguard to change into the long snake formation. Then the cattle are released, and the black cattle at the front are driven forward to break through the fort. On the walls, soldiers order the 1st Battalion of archers into position and move the 2nd team into C formation. One soldier is so sleepy he can barely keep up, while the others rush everyone to stop dawdling and block the gate with sandbags. But then, the top of the city wall gate explodes. Soldiers fall from above as Niu Niu tears through them like a ferocious beast gone mad. Anyone in the way is swept aside like dry leaves, and the soldiers on the city wall are all finished. The remaining soldiers panic, unable to understand what kind of monster they are facing. With the commander and the lord nowhere to be found, they can only scream for everyone to hold on. Then the bull smashes through the gate. A soldier cries out that the gate is broken. The soldiers urge their men not to be afraid, insisting the enemy is only a black ox. They order the spearmen to form ranks, then command everyone to kill the enemy and stab the beast. The massive black bull charges straight at them. The soldiers scream for the creature to be stabbed to death. But the black bull smashes through the spear formation with overwhelming force. The impact scatters the soldiers, and the beast unleashes a powerful roar. The soldiers scream and clutch their heads in agony, unable to understand what is happening. Even then, orders ring out for them not to panic and to maintain the spear formation, because if the line breaks, they will all die. Chinman shouts for the attack to continue, noting that the black ox has torn open the defense line. He immediately orders his troops to follow him into the city. Facing the barbarian army, Chinman reminds them that they have the best supplies and equipment, then commands them to follow him and kill. He declares that his opponent must die, claiming they are an army of righteousness, while pointing out that he has already heard the enemy formation breaking. Without hesitation, Chinman orders the entrenched camp to push through the middle, break through the barbican, and reach the city. Fan Lihua commands the Lihua army to break through the left wing. At the same time, Zhang Fei and Guan Yu order a double-sided encirclement to crush the enemy. Orders spread for the whole army to enter the city at full speed. The defenders shout for everyone to advance, stop the invaders, and protect the barbican as cavalry begins entering the city. As more cavalry floods into the barbican, the remaining Shuo Fang soldiers on the city walls rush in to support the defense. Orders are given to block the latter opening and stop the soldiers below. Cries for reinforcements at the north gate spread through the chaos, followed by reports that the gate has fallen. Even then, the defenders command one another to block the enemy with dead bodies if necessary. The soldiers call for arrows and rush their men to shoot. Since they have the high ground, they believe they can shoot the enemies to death from above. Fan Lihua warns the troops to beware of the arrow rain, then points out several teams of archers on the west side of the city wall. The order immediately goes out for men to climb the wall and take them out. Cheng Dalei swiftly cuts down the archers, and every one of them collapses to the ground. After seeing the defenders completely lose morale and begin to collapse, Cheng Dalei remarks that they have been infected with the habits of civil servants. To him, they are not qualified opponents at all, which makes the fight painfully disappointing. By this point, the situation inside the barbican has already become one-sided. The soldiers shout for their men not to escape or retreat, but others beg to be let out, crying that the enemy is too strong and pleading for their lives. Cheng Dalei clicks his tongue in annoyance. Facing the fleeing enemies, he remarks that if they are going to escape, they should at least stop blocking the way. Then he hurls an explosive toward the gateway. A massive blast erupts and engulfs the soldiers. The battle only lasts a few moments. The cannons break through the city gate, and the sharp blade troops enter the battlefield, crushing the barbican defense line while the soldiers continue shouting for the kill. The whole village army pushes into the city. Shuo Fang City has fallen, and the chaos of war spills into the streets of the conquered city. Meanwhile, a servant informs the city lord that the thieves from Toad Village have attacked. The servant pleads for the city lord to wake up, then cries out for the lord again. But the city lord lies lifeless on the ground, eyes still open. His body has died over scattered silver. At the city gate, the iron cavalry pours into Shuo Fang City like a floodgate bursting open. The The soldiers shout that the enemy has entered, while others cry that the invaders have broken in. Some defenders urge their men not to be afraid and try to form a square formation to stop the enemy, but the situation is already falling apart. Qinman commands the Iron Cavalry to charge deeper into the city and crush the enemy's main force. The order to kill echoes as the villagers surge forward. The Shuo Fang soldiers scramble to organize a response, but they have already been completely defeated. On the wide street, they can no longer form any large-scale formation. Qinman continues his relentless assault against the disorganized soldiers. One soldier attacks him with a spear, but the tip shatters on impact the moment it strikes him. The soldier cannot understand why the weapon fails to pierce through, only then realizing that Qinman and his troops are wearing heavy armor. Qinman pierces him in return, killing the soldier in a single blow. The assault on the city continues with a massive cavalry charge. The heavy war horses crash forward like boulders, crushing everything in their path, and no one can stand against them. The cavalry tears through the enemy lines, and the army's morale collapses almost instantly. Countless foot soldiers retreat in panic, dodging in every direction and ripping their own formation apart even further. The defending infantry can no longer withstand the momentum. Fan Lihua shouts that the Manzi army has broken through the center and charged into the city. She immediately orders the troops to break through and split up according to plan. The Lihua army is assigned to attack the right flank and occupy Maji, while Zhang Fei commands his troops to follow him and carry out the original strategy. Niu Niu guides her mount through the gate and whistles for it. The Black Bull releases a loud roar as Cheng Dalei instructs the entire army to enter the city, occupy the key points before dawn, and take Shuo Fang. Cheng Dalei then directs Niu Niu to move, reminding everyone that they each have their own task and that this operation has been planned long ago. After that, he declares that they must go meet the Shuo family. By now, the situation inside the city has become completely dire. Chaos spreads through every street. Fires rage everywhere, screams fill the air, and the defeated army collapses like a landslide. Most of the soldiers scatter in panic, fleeing blindly without even watching where they are going. Some kneel and beg for mercy, only to be trampled by their own people as cries and pleas shake the city. The soldiers cry out that no one is in command, desperately calling for the general and the city lord. Soon, even worse news spreads. The city lord is dead. The military advisor is dead. They all died inside their own bedrooms. Fan Lihua roars for everyone to kill, warning that anyone who dares to block this old lady's path will be chopped up. Terrified soldiers beg for their lives, while others scramble through the smoke-filled streets. At this point, the remaining survivors are already at their limit. Sima Qian observes that it is finally starting. Liangzhou is about to change hands. She urges Cheng Dalei forward, wanting to witness his path as a hegemon with her own eyes. The battle begins in the middle of the night and lasts until dawn. The 30,000 troops inside the city do not even manage to form a proper defensive formation before Toad Village breaks through. Assassins behead the key figures, cannons shatter the city's defenses, and the cavalry launches a sudden attack that overwhelms everything. The commoners hide inside their houses, trembling as Toad Village's cavalry rides through the city and shouts loudly. Qinman announces that the city lord is dead, and that anyone who surrenders will be spared. He orders the military doctors to enter the city and treat the wounded, then declares that those who resist will be killed, while those who surrender will live. Zhang Fei proclaims that Minister Kui is corrupt, that Toad Village will now rule, and that corrupt officials must be killed, while the people must not be harmed. With that, Zhang Fei declares that Shuo Fang City is now under their control. Later, the troops arrive at the Shuo Fang City granary. Sui Rui calls out to Cheng Dalei and declares that from this day forward, the Shui family is under Toad Village's command. For his daughter's sake, he implores Cheng Dalei to take good care of them. Sui Rui also reveals that the Shui family still has a unit of soldiers. They are currently in the south buying grain and are already heading this way, so he begs Cheng Dalei to send troops to meet them. Cheng Dalei agrees and addresses Sui Rui as a comrade, acknowledging that undercover work has been difficult and that he has completed the task assigned by the organization. He then states that justice will prevail over evil. Sui Rui pledges himself to the big boss and offers to become his loyal dog. Cheng Dalei then calls Qinman over to meet his father-in-law. However, not everyone inside the city is completely dealt with. Some still stubbornly hold on to their troops and flee to other cities in Liangzhou, making it difficult to eliminate them all at once. During a surprise attack, There is no time to judge the enemy's attitude. Anyone who blocks the way is killed, and anyone who refuses to surrender dies. Some people realize the situation is hopeless and escape through the city gates with their men. Others lead their troops toward different cities in Liangzhou. Some abandon everything but their gold and silver, fleeing into the grasslands and mountains. Cheng Dalei immediately sends out his military orders. Unauthorized slaughter of civilians is forbidden. Surrendered prisoners cannot be killed. Anyone who disobeys faces execution. He makes the rules even clearer. Anyone who violates women or slaughters children is executed on the spot. Anyone who plunders property receives the same punishment. After the war, rewards will be given according to merit. Beheading an enemy general, leading the charge, capturing the flag, or breaking through enemy lines will all earn military credit for the squad. As Hart watches the city, she quietly hums to herself. In her eyes, those who plunder are nothing but bandits, while those who rise against the state are lords. The path of righteousness is surrounded by tyrannical evildoers, so the weak must be guided with compassion and kindness. Still, anyone who dares poison and harm the people will face her judgment. She vows to bring them retribution. Soon after, the system announces that Shuo Fang City, a level 3 city, has been captured. Their spoils include more than 300,000 shy of grain and grass, hundreds of war horses, tens of thousands of weapons, blades and arrows, hundreds of sets of armor and saddles, countless gold and silver, more than 10,000 captives, and over 100,000 civilians inside the city. The system then updates the Lord of Liangzhou mission progress. 2 out of 6 cities have been captured, while the Conquer the World progress rises to 2 out of 108. That night, the Toad Village army marches south and launches a surprise attack, easily taking Shuo Fang City. With that, the Liangzhou War officially begins. Meanwhile, a soldier rushes in with an urgent report. Inside the Zhang mansion, Zhang Weihu urges a woman not to worry because he has money now. He wants her to put it away quickly, or the tigress from the Kui family will probably beat him up again. The mistress wants the general to buy something for her, wondering whether his wife will become jealous. She remarks that his wife is terrifying, unlike herself, since she only feels sorry for her brother. Before the mood can continue, a soldier bursts into the room and reports that the Toad Village army has launched a surprise attack on Shuo Fang City. Shuo Fang City has already fallen. Zhang Weihu is stunned by the news and demands confirmation. He cannot understand how Shuo Fang City, with a garrison of 30,000 soldiers, could fall so easily. He questions how they broke through the gate and why the frontline checkpoints failed to notice their march. The soldier insists that the report is absolutely true. Last night, a bolt of lightning split open the city gate, the city lord and commanders were assassinated, and 5,000 cavalry breached and captured the city in a single night. Zhang Weihu immediately orders them to go to the Shu family. But another report arrives just as suddenly. The Shuo mansion is empty. The Shu family secretly fled Liangzhou City last night. At that moment, Zhang Weihu pieces everything together. He remembers selling military rations to Toad Village to earn a huge profit, with the grain temporarily stored in Shuo Fang City so he could seize it later. He recalls Shui Rui requesting a token to pass through the checkpoints for convenience, claiming that soldiers always obstructed them from making money. That token allowed Cheng Dalei's troops to enter the pass. The Shui family then led the way as they escaped. Shui Rui had also requested the names and residences of the city lord and commanders of Shuo Fang City, claiming that he wanted to build relationships with them. In truth, that list became the target list for assassination. Zhang Weihu curses as he realizes they have been tricked. Meanwhile, Gao Feibao and Gao Feihu sit by the water and fish. A little sweetness is enough to lure the fish in. Once the sharp hook catches its mouth, the fish can no longer escape. Zhang Weihu spits out that the merchant truly was a fine merchant, then decides that the stolen army rations in Shuo Fang City must never be discovered by Song Pokang. He calls for the military supply officer. Then another soldier arrives with urgent military intelligence. Zhang Weihu demands to know what bad news has come this time. The soldier reports that the Lord has ordered preparations for war. A military review is currently being held in the army camp, and they are being ordered to mobilize supplies immediately. Zhang Weihu panics. The current grain in the city is nowhere near enough to support 100,000 troops on an expedition. Once anyone investigates, his head will roll. The soldier urges the general to calm down and quickly come up with a plan. Zhang Weihu orders him to lead the way to the granary at once. At this point, he either acts or dies. Meanwhile, at the Liangzhou army camp, large drums thunder as the army gathers. Massive rows of tents stand before the assembled troops, while soldiers form disciplined ranks throughout the camp. Kuishang sits on his throne, flanked by his advisors and adopted son. He wants Song Pokong's judgment on the Liangzhou army's chances against Cheng Dalei's Toad Village army. Song Pokong replies that if Shu Shenji does not interfere, and if both sides have similar strength, their chance of victory is only around 30%. Kuishang points out that the night attack on Shuo Fang City only involved 5,000 men, and the Toad Village army was already small to begin with. Because of that, they must retake Shuo Fang City before the enemy can establish a foothold. Song Pokong reports that thunder supposedly shattered the door last night, and this thunder is probably not ordinary. He warns His Highness that this battle will not be easy, but he will do everything he can. Kuishang explains that leading troops into war is not Song Pokong's strength. Because of that, Zhang Weihu will lead 50,000 troops, while Song Pokong will serve as an advisor. For this battle, they are only allowed to win, not lose. Song Pokong accepts the order. Lubu Fengxian immediately requests permission from his father to enter the battlefield and wipe out the rebels for him. Kuishang rejects the idea, pointing out that Lubu Fengxian's military experience is still too shallow. The commander must be someone who can command respect. Kuishang then looks over his silent subordinates. The officials quietly panic, knowing that almost all of them have been involved in the grain-selling incident to some degree. None of them wants to be chosen. Kuishang laments that the generals of Liangzhou are truly dwindling, then remarks that some people are far too ambitious. Song Pokong observes that Kuishang still values experience and seniority when choosing people. At the same time, he fears his subordinates becoming too powerful, so he secretly suppresses them while the officials under him likely have their own agendas. Song Pokong also realizes that the Zhui family has already fled. Since he probably cannot stay here much longer, he must find that thing as soon as possible. At that moment, Song Pokong suddenly understands how Emperor Ming felt. Faced with people like this, becoming a tyrant is easier than becoming a wise ruler. Kuishang looks around and demands to know where Zhang Weihu is. Song Pokong answers that General Zhang is currently mobilizing grain from the granary and may have been delayed by something. Suddenly, a loud explosion startles the soldiers. Kuishang immediately demands an explanation. Song Pokong identifies the sound as coming from the direction of the granary. Kuishang realizes something is wrong as people cry out that the granary has exploded and caught fire. A soldier reports to the officials that the warehouse exploded and all the supplies have been burned to ashes. Kuishang presses for more information. The soldier reveals that General Zhang was also caught in the fire, and his survival is uncertain. Kuishang is stunned, while Song Pokong immediately checks whether the report is true and how serious the injury is. Privately, Song Pokong realizes that if Zhang Weihu dies in the explosion, he may finally have a chance to lead the troops himself. Meanwhile, the granary continues burning fiercely, with dead bodies scattered across the scorched ground. Zhang Weihu calls out to His Highness and explains that he was only checking the supplies when a loud explosion suddenly erupted. In an instant, the warehouse ended up like this, with both the grain and gunpowder gone. He laments that they had finally bought the grain back, only for everything to be reduced to ashes by a single fire. Zhang Weihu takes responsibility for the disaster, but insists he never expected the Shuo family to be traitors. In his eyes, they are despicable, and this must be Cheng Dalei's conspiracy. Song Pokong is disappointed to see Zhang Weihu still alive and cannot understand why he did not burn to death. Kuishang assures Zhang Weihu that this was a sudden accident and orders him to rest. As for leading the troops, that responsibility will now be given to Song Pokong. Song Pokong accepts the order. He informs His Highness that he will immediately gather new grain and set out on the expedition. However, the grain previously purchased in Jingzhou is not enough to support 100,000 troops. Kuishang decides that if the grain is insufficient, they can only seize it from the people of Liangzhou who still have surplus autumn crops. Song Pokong then reports that the Shu family has a grain convoy that should be arriving in Liangzhou. Since the Shu family has already defected, that convoy has probably turned toward Qinchuan with no intention of delivering the grain. Kuishang orders Song Pokong to take 5,000 cavalry and seize that batch of grain. Zhong Weihu immediately realizes that Song Pokong must have caught the Shui family selling grain. He calls for His Highness to wait. Kui Xiang orders Zhong Weihu to lie down and recover instead of worrying about the war. Zhong Weihu refuses and declares that he is willing to atone for his failure by retrieving the grain and capturing the Shui family himself. Kui Xiang questions whether he can move with his injury, but Zhong Weihu insists that he is fine. Zhong Weihu then turns the task away from Song Pokong, making it clear that he will handle the matter himself and there is no need to trouble Song Pokong. Kui Xiang smiles and decides to leave the task to Zhong Weihu instead. Song Pokong is ordered to continue guarding Liangzhou city. Zhong Weihu thanks His Highness for his kindness. As Kui Xiang and Song Pokong walk away, Song Pokong's expression turns fierce and resentful.